In this video, we will use StatCrunch to make various graphical displays. So the first one I'm going to do is a stem and leaf. So I'm going to go to, and I have soda volume data here, so I'm going to go to Graph, Stem and Leaf, and I'm going to pick the soda volumes. And there's really not a lot of options here. I would not trim any outliers. The data set is very small, so I don't really want to take any values out. So here is my stem and leaf, and I notice I've got one bottle that was 50, probably ounces, two that are 65, a whole bunch that are 70, several that are 75, several that are 80, two 80s, 185, 92, 93, 94, 95. So there's my stem and leaf. With the same data set, let's leave this graph up here. Let's go ahead and make a dot plot with the same data set and see which we like better. So let's go soda volumes. And again, there's really not much options here in the stem, a dot plot rather. So here's the dot plot. So there's what it looks like. And you can see 50 looks like it's an outlier. There's two 65s here. You can get an idea of the distribution of the data in the dot plot. So there's your stem and leaf and your dot plot. All right. Now, another one you might want to do is called a time series or a time plot. And I've got data here on births in the United States from 1990 through, goes pretty far out here, up to 2009. So I've got the births recorded and I've also got the birth rate. So let's make a time plot of each one and see the difference between the data. So let's go to Graph, and it's called Index Time Plot. And we're going to let's do the births first. And if you notice in the column labeled years, actually it's going to be a little difficult because they're not evenly spaced. I was thinking they were. So let's just leave it starting with an index of 1 because they're not evenly spaced. I thought they were 5 years apart, but they're not. Let's just leave it as an index 1 and it'll go up by 1 since we don't have evenly spaced years there. We can still get an idea of what the data look like. And let's just compute. All right, so here's what we have. So it looks like the births seem to be on an upward trend, which is not surprising because the population of the United States has gone up. But now let's make a graph, the same time plot, and let's look at the birth rate. And again, we'll start the index at 1. Now, if this 1910, if it had gone by 5-year increments, I could have put 1910 here and then put an increment of 5, and it would have gone 1910, 1915, 1920. But as I get into the later years, I noticed that we're getting annual rates, so I don't want to use that. It would be misleading on the data to graph it that way. So let's take a look at the birth rate. Interesting. Okay, so we have a downward trend on the birth rate. We have an upward trend on the births. Not surprising what we know about the United States. Families are tending to be smaller, and the birth rate, remember, is like a standardized value. It's going to be births probably per 100,000, maybe per million. I'm not really sure what the birth rate was based on. And then finally, I've got some categorical data, and I wanted to show you a couple of visual displays we can do for that. Let's go to Graph. Let's do a pie chart first, and we're going to do it on, we have data, and we're going to do it on the favorite color. And let's just put counts on there so it's not too complicated on the graph. So here's the pie chart. And there's quite a few colors. This is a pretty hard one to read, I think, because there's so many color choices for favorite color. It's clear that blue was the most popular favorite color. Let's go ahead instead and do a bar graph. And I'm going to show you a couple things you can do with this. Let's do favorite color. And let's just let StatCrunch pick what it wants to pick here. And so here we see that blue is the highest and then purple comes next. Now there's one kind of graph with a bar graph you can create called a Pareto. And in a Pareto chart, we want the frequencies to be decreasing. So if I go back into my options and down here, I'm going to order them by count descending. And that will create the Pareto. And what that does is draw your eyes to the categories that have the highest frequencies. In this case, certainly blue and purple, and perhaps pink. The rest of them are pretty low frequencies. So there's a Pareto chart and then also how to do the bar graph.